Hey there, welcome to part 2 of this tutorial all about using the PSP Ultimate Modular Collection as effects inside of your mix. If you haven't seen part 1 covering the basics of how to get started creating effects using Voltage Modular in the PSP modules, you can check that out and then come back to this video once you're ready. In this video, I wanted to share with you a couple of other ideas to use the PSP modules in your mix. Of course, it's not really limited to these ideas because this is a modular effects section, so you can really go as crazy as you want and expand on these ideas however you see fit. The PSP Ultimate Modular Collection for Voltage Modular is available now, so if you want to check that out and follow along as we go here, be sure to check the link down in the description below. With that, let's get right into it. In part 1, we talked about building this weird modular filtered phaser reverb delay effect, which is a lot of fun to explore. But in today's video, we're going to be exploring a couple of other case uses for using the PSP modules in your mix, because you can use these as just a basic processor, like I've used a compressor here or a filter and EQ in the chorus, or you can get a little bit more interesting like using this where I've got the space and the flanger modules put together. So let's break down a couple of other ideas to see how these can be used in your mix. Let's break down the other two vocal synths here. First up, I've used a PSP Chorus on the vocal, and this is a really cool trick to make your vocals feel very wide and lush. The PSP Chorus has up to 4 voices, so what I've done here is set this to 4 and 4 mode, where I've got 4 individual choruses moving around. I set the feedback to taste, and then just drop the bass boost a little bit to remove any kind of bassy buildup in the vocal. Of course, because this is a send, remember to set your mix to 100% wet, and other than that, I just played with these settings a little bit to find what seemed to work best. So I offset the pre-delays of each of these to be a little bit different, and the same with the range, so that every individual chorus voice is just swirling and moving a little bit differently. If we take this down and blend it in, you'll hear what happens in the mix. So I've got a lead vocal and 2 doubles to the sides, which is already pretty wide.
Beyond the bodies of black cross, shine like 1,000 suns.
But I felt like it could feel a bit bigger, especially in the chorus. So if we start blending this in here.
Beyond the bodies of black cross, shine like 1,000 suns.
That's obviously way too much and it sounds a bit phasey, but in a subtle way, if you blend it in just underneath everything.
Beyond the bodies of black cross, shine like 1,000.
It adds a very interesting swirling movement and just pushes things to be a little bit wider. If we start messing with the phase spread and intensity even more.
Beyond the bodies of black cross, shine like 1,000 suns. This spout of frozen lake reflect the 7 flags.
There's a lot of little ways to enhance a vocal line. This works really well for just widening out a chorus, or if you've only got a single vocal, this is a great trick just to add a subtle bit of dimension to it to fill out the space in the mix. For the final vocal send here, I've got a PSP space feeding into a PSP Flanger. So this adds a nice swirling, trippy reverb to the vocal, because we've already got that really interesting delay effect, and that's kind of the main effect here, but I felt like the vocals could use just a little bit more presence with the classic reverb, and PSP space on chamber mode really just adds a nice smooth reverb to sit underneath everything. So this effect sounds like this.
Beyond the bodies of black cross, shine like 1,000 suns.
What I've done here is just feed a PSP space into a PSP Flanger, which is pretty straightforward, but this is really to demonstrate kind of the magic idea of the PSP modules. If we hop into the library here, we could do all sorts of interesting things. Let's grab a PSP Chorus instead here. One idea might be to take this reverb and use a flanger on the left side, but then maybe we would use a chorus on the right. So now we've created a unique, kind of one-of-a-kind reverb.
Beyond the bodies of black cross, shine like 1,000.
And actually, I think that sounds even cooler, so I think we're gonna leave it with that. So that's a really easy idea to start expanding on your processing chains using modules. Because it's a modular environment, you're really not restricted in how or why you can patch things together. You can really just keep going until your computer can't take it anymore. Of course, vocal sends and vocal effects and weird modular effects are a ton of fun, but we also all need that bread and butter processing. One of the other effects I've reached for here was actually the PSP Nitro SVF and the PEQ6 for the Guitar Bus. If we take a listen before this is applied, the guitars sound like this. which I thought sounded pretty cool, but I felt like it could use just a bit more meat to it. So once we bring this in, it added this nice kind of crunch and fizz to things. So what I did was just run the audio into the SVF here, opened up the frequency all the way, and used a bit of resonance to add just a nice high shelf lift to everything, and then just cranked up the saturation from the filter here. So if we dial this back, bring it in, right around 50 to 60%, it just added this nice grit and breakup to things. But in order to enhance that, I wanted to bring in a little bit of EQ. If we bypass the EQ, it sounds like this, which sounded pretty okay. It had that nice bit of fizz and breakup to it, but it didn't really feel weighty anymore. It kind of clouded things up a bit. So by running this into the EQ, I just lifted up the high shelf at around 4.5K, and then added a little bit of a low end boost at about 130 Hertz. It really made those guitars sound nice and full. If we take a listen to this in context, this is the guitar mix before. And this is the guitar mix after. Which is pretty subtle, but I felt like it just added this nice lift and bit of bite and growl to the guitars that just helped kind of swirl around everything and thicken out the mix overall. Another interesting and slightly more complicated effect here is on one of the guitar solos. If we take a listen to this solo section before this effect is applied, sounds pretty cool. It's already got a delay on it and some reverb. And now I'm going to bring in this effect. Which really starts to get trippy and weird and enhance that just kind of spacey, out of this world vibe to really make that guitar solo just sound very out there and just enhance that, you know, trippy and abstract theme of the track. This was built using a couple of quick ideas. First up, I grabbed the console mixer, which is included with Voltage Modular Core, and I ran the audio into that. So I've got the left and the right channels on channels 1 and 2 respectively. Then, using the sends of this mixer, I sent this out to a couple different places. First up, I've got this feeding into Nitro Formant, which is a Formant filter, which sounds super cool and almost like a talk box, so that's what I wanted on this guitar here. And I just set the vowels to A and E, but you can experiment with different vowel shapes for something a bit more interesting. Like that might actually be even cooler. Then I've got this sending out to a delay as well, so this goes into PSP delay, and then the left and right feedback into the returns. I just put up the sends all the way for the left and right, and blended this in using the level controls here. Where this gets really interesting though is panning these sends around, because it's already got that delay and reverb, so the guitar already feels pretty spacious, but it was a little bit mono for my taste, and I wanted it to feel a bit wider. So I'm using these effects to create this extra sense of dimension to the sides. What I did to do this is the remote control module here, which is included with Voltage Modular Core. This is actually allowing me to control things that don't typically have CV inputs. So what I did is just click and learn this to the panning of these effects sends here. So you can see they're actually moving around. And how I did this was with PSP Nitro LFO. So I set up a really slow LFO and used the offset to create two kind of weaving signs that just never really match up, and then sent output A and B into these panning inserts. And then for the filter, this is also controlling the pitch, and then I've also got output B here controlling the frequency. So I've got a lot of movement and things going on. The flanger here didn't end up being used, but maybe we could also work that in by sending the delay through the flanger as well. And then we've got kind of a flanger delay hybrid. Let's see what that sounds like. Mix that in all the way. And that's kind of neat, so I guess we'll just leave it like that. But that's a really fun way to start experimenting with some more complicated ideas. Finally, of course, no drum mix is complete without a really badass aggressive compressor. So on the drum mix, I've actually just used PSP VCA CMP. So this is a really nice aggressive compressor while not being too character coloring and weird. So the drum mix before sounds pretty cool. But if we bring this in, like, man, it just feels way better. And of course, for, you know, aggressive rock and metal styles, we need that kind of thing. Because without the compressor on the drum mix here, if we listen to this in context, the drums just don't really cut through the mix at all, even though they're sort of balanced. I mean, we could boost these up a little bit. But they just don't stand out. Once we bring in this Voltage Modular instance, though, with the VCA CMP, those drums just really smack and cut and hit you right in the meaty bits. Doing this is super simple. I added Voltage Modular effects, I sent the audio source through it, and then right out to the master output. It really doesn't get any more simple than that. So this is a really great way just to add a compressor, and this was super straightforward. I set it up like any other compressor. We could maybe go into RMS mode here. We've got different topologies we can select, ratio, mix, all that good stuff. So I actually did this with 50/50, so this is actually running as a parallel compressor, so we can make it maybe even more aggressive. So now those drums just feel absolutely huge, and it's all just a matter of adding a very quick compressor to them. And that wraps everything up for this video. The PSP Ultimate Modular Collection for Voltage Modular is available right now, so if you want to check it out for yourself, you can find more information with the link down in the description. These modules are a ton of fun to explore and cover everything from simple parallel compression on drums to really weird modular effects that go beyond what you can do with most traditional plugins. And because Voltage Modular is modular, the only real limit to all this with the PSP modules is your imagination, your patience, and your computer's processing power. That wraps everything up for this video, so thanks for watching as always, and for more information on PSP and other PSP plugins, you can head over to PSPaudioware.com.